to Musicians Edition. Today we're going to learn our first groove on the drum set. So we've talked about how to put your drum set together. We've talked about how to place yourself behind the drum set. And today we're going to put all that into action and play our first groove. A couple things to mention before we get going here. One is that we want to make sure when we're around loud instruments that we always protect our ears, okay? So I've got my earplugs here. Make sure that you either have some sort of ear protection or that you have your drums muffled to a point that they're not hurting your ears, okay? We don't want to be around loud sounds for extended periods of time and damage our hearing over the course of our hopefully years and years of playing drums, okay? The other thing is, as we start to play things on drum set here, we're asking our body to do a lot of complicated processes, all right? To transfer the notes from our mind to our body, for our limbs to cooperate independently of each other, and so it just takes time. So don't get frustrated, just stick with it, break things down, slow things down, use the different practice techniques that we're gonna discuss here, and you'll be good to go, okay? So, starting out here, we're gonna play over the course of one measure of 4/4, we're going to play our bass drum on beat 1 and beat 3. Okay, so that'll look like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? And I'm always a fan of counting while you're playing, all right? Because if we're able to count out loud while we perform these rhythms, then we know we're really internalizing the pulse of the music, okay, which is super important in order to count and play with consistent time, okay? So bass drum on 1 and 3. Next step is with our left hand. We're not going to do anything with the right hand just yet. With our left hand, we're going to play our snare drum on beat 2 and beat 4, okay? So it'll be 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, okay? When we put that together, bass drum is on 1, snare drum is on 2, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. Bass, snare, snare. That'll look like this. 1. Okay? So we're just going to practice that for a couple minutes here and try to keep it really consistent, right? And just try to really let the muscle memory and the coordination kind of settle in and solidify before we add the right hand here, which is in a minute, which is going to make things more complicated, okay? So here we go, nice and easy, slow tempo, and just really letting those movements settle in, okay? 2, ready, go. Very good. All right, let's try that same thing, but just a little bit faster, all right? Here we go. 1, 2, 3, and... Good. And let's do it one time even faster than that. 1, 2, 3, and... Good. It's always important to practice things at different tempos, right? Because at a faster tempo or a slower tempo, the coordination to execute these combinations is going to feel different, right? So it's good to let your body get used to doing it at faster tempos, slower tempos, right? All that good stuff. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is take our right hand, put it on the hi-hat, we cross it over the snare drum, right? Remember that? And then we're gonna play eighth notes on our hi-hat, right? Which will sound like 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, okay? So let's try that, just the hi-hat by itself. Eighth notes, 2 and ready and go. And 1. Okay, good. And it's important, again, to make sure that you're counting out loud, counting in your head, right? I like to kind of practice a combination of both, right? Counting out loud forces you to really know where the beats are. And then ultimately we want to translate that into your head, because when you're, performing music, you don't want to necessarily be speaking while you do it, right? So kind of start by counting out loud and then internalize that and just count it in your mind, okay? The next step is we're going to take those hi-hat eighth notes, combine them with beat 1 and 3 on the bass drum, right? So we're thinking 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and bass and 2 and bass and 4 and bass and 2 and bass and 4 and. All right, let's give that a try. Again, this might get a little tricky now because we're combining limbs. We're playing different note values with different limbs. Just take your time and the coordination will come. Okay, here we go. Eighth notes on the hi-hat, beat 1 and 3 on the bass drum. 1, 2, and ready, and go. And 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, 2, and 3, and 4, Okay, good. Let's try that same combination, but a little faster. 1 and 2 and ready, go. 1 and 2. Okay. Very good. Now let's take the right foot out and let's put the left hand in, okay? So we'll have eighth notes on the hi-hat, snare drum on 2 and 4, right? So it'll be 1 and snare and 3 and snare and 1 and snare and 3 and snare and, okay? Let's try that nice and slow. 2 and ready, go. Okay, very good. Let's try that same thing, just like we did with the bass drum hi-hat at a faster tempo, okay? Here we go. 1, 2, ready, and 1. Okay, good. Now let's slow the tempo back down and put it all together. So anytime you're learning a new pattern on the drum set, you want to try to think about how we can break this down, right? A really good way to break things down is to just take one limb out of the equation, right? And try to simplify it down to just one limb and then 2 limbs, right? And then think of the different 2-limb combinations that you can do to get your body used to performing the movements before you put it all together. Okay, so to review what we did is we played the bass drum by itself, we played the bass drum and the snare drum together, right? Then we played the hi-hat by itself, then we played the hi-hat and bass drum together, and then we played the hi-hat and snare drum together, okay? So we've played pretty much all of the different combinations you could come up with, except for all three at the same time. Okay, and you want to save that for last, because it can be it'll be the most challenging for your coordination. Okay, so we'll build ourselves up to that. All right. When you start to put three limbs together, things get a little tricky. So just really slow things down and take your time putting it together. Okay, let's try this once, then we'll talk about one more way that you can practice this groove. Okay, here we go. Nice and easy. 1, 2, ready, go. Okay, now if that feels a little bit uncomfortable or it's just not happening, if it's just falling apart, totally fine, right? It's pretty normal that in the early stages of playing the drum set, combining all three of those things together is just going to be kind of a train wreck. No worries. Here's a way that you can really break this groove down in order to get your body to do it in the right combinations. Okay. What we're going to do is go in slow motion and just focus on what limbs are playing in what order, okay? So if we think about this, the very first thing we do in this groove is play the hi-hat and the bass drum together, right? So hi-hat, bass drum together, right? And then hi-hat by itself, that's and of 1, right? Then beat 2 is both hands together, snare drum and hi-hat together, right? 2, and then hi-hat by itself on the and of 2, right? And then bass drum hi-hat together for beat 3, 3, right? And then and of 3 on the hi-hat. And then snare drum hi-hat together for beat 4. And then and of 4 on the hi-hat. Okay? So we can just cycle through it that slowly and really think and be deliberate about each and every note that you're playing and which hand or foot are playing together, right? And then over time, your body will get used to making those movements in order, and you'll be able to speed it up into the groove that we had going a second ago, right? So we'll walk through that again. So beat 1 is bass drum hi-hat together. And of 1 is hi-hat by itself. Beat 2 is both hands together. And of 2 is hi-hat by itself. Beat 3 is bass drum hi-hat together. And of 3 is hi-hat. And then beat 4 is snare drum hi-hat together. And then and of 4 is hi-hat. Okay, and we'll just keep walking through that. Hi-hat, snare and hi-hat together. Hi-hat by itself. Beat 3 is bass drum hi-hat. And of 3. And 1. And 2. And bass drum hi-hat. Hi-hat by itself. Hands together. Hi-hat by itself. Bass drum hi-hat. Hi-hat by itself, hands together, hi-hat, bass drum hi-hat. Okay? So again, just keep working through that progression, and eventually you'll speed it up. And then let's play the whole groove at 2 different tempos here to finish up, okay? Here we go, nice and slow. 1, 2, ready, and... Good, and then let's go a little faster. 1 and 2 and ready, and... Very good. So that combination is going to form the basis for a large percentage of what we're going to do on the drum set here in the coming next whole bunch of videos here, okay? So stay tuned to Musicians Edition. Go have fun, keep practicing, and I'll catch you next time.